Hello, everyone. My name is Kirsten Jansen, and I'm happy to welcome you all to the Osterville Village Library. And to our friends on Zoom, thank you so much for joining us as well. Today, we are excited to have with us Kathy Aspden, author of The Malabeats, a novel of hope and discovery in a time of chaos. A little backstory on Kathy before we begin. Kathy is a lifelong resident of Cape Cod and an incredibly active participant in the community, being the vice president of the Cape Cod Writers Center. She is also a television host for Books in the World, as well as a reviewer for litlovers.com. Among these many impressive positions, Kathy holds also the titles of screenwriter, novelist, and public speaker. For her novels, Kathy has most recently been the winner of the 2024 Persons of the Year Award for Multicultural Fiction and a finalist for the 2024 American Book Fest Award. Today, she has come to discuss her most recently published novel, The Malabeats, a mystery that evolved into a multicultural and spiritual story and is unlike any novel you have ever read before. Without further ado, Kathy Aspden and The Malabeats.
Thank you. I'm gonna do these first. Thank you and welcome. Thank you so much for being here. It's always such an honor and a privilege to speak to anybody about my work and about their work for that matter, which is why I love doing the hosting for Books in the World, because we do interviews for authors all over. Well, they actually can be all over the country, but they have to have a connection to Cape Cod. And so we've been doing that show since 1978. It came out with its first episode. So what I'd first like you to do, since she gave me such a beautiful introduction, thank you, Kirsten, is to relax in your seat. Close your eyes. And as we sit here, we're going to have a little visualization, a very short moment to get us started. So as we sit here with our eyes closed and our hearts open, let us soak in the energy and the promise of everything around us. All things material, visual, and experienced contain this energy. Each book in this building holds the intention, effort, emotion, and love of the author who created it. Generations of thoughts and ideas, each with a physical energetic field, surround us and surround this building. We are in sacred space. Breathe in this energy, feeling it increase with each breath. Let us take the joy, love, and unity we've been given today and expand it within our bodies like a balloon. Let's spill that energy to the person on our right, and then on to the person on our left, connecting us all as one. Now imagine that connected energy filling this room and moving through these four walls to include and nurture everyone in this building, this community, and the entire island of Cape Cod. Breathe in and envision. Now with your mind out of your heart's way, dismiss any thoughts of limitation or lack and go to a place inside where all things are possible, where you become able to extend this compassionate energy throughout the United States into all the countries on planet Earth, including the animal and plant kingdom. Can you feel how easy it is to push this loving energy into space and beyond, where we can envision our planet being held in a loving embrace, healed and able to support and sustain every loving thing? Now, take another picture of this force as the mysterious energetic power inside of each of us that allows us to envision and change our destiny and our future. Understand that we've always held this power, that we have subconsciously used it for our entire lives. This projected energy is called manifestation. We all hold the power to manifest our destiny. Now, open your eyes and take out the beads that are in the packet in your lap. In the Malabeats story, the manifestation ability has been transferred to a sacred, mysterious mala bead necklace, like the one you hold in your hands. That the first two chapters, the first two paragraphs tell you how the mala beads got that energy. It's a very short passage that I'm going to read for you now, so you'll have some understanding of why the book was created. India, 2019, the beads, the beginning. After 5 years of contemplation, the sign came to him in the form of a brilliant morning sun whose rays were a startling shade of deep blue. In the center of his pineal gland, the third eye, an intense pain burst forth the word Ya Abhai, it is now. Without fanfare, the guru walked the short distance from the hillside into the sacred chamber of the cave. Needing nothing but the fire within his heart, he pulled the sandalwood mala beads from his robe and settled in lotus posture for prayer. Soon the unending chant, Om Satyam Narayanam, echoed through the cavern's dark crevices in deep melodic measure. By the fifth day, he could feel the sacred energy incarnating into the beads, creating a bond between himself, the wood, and the supreme consciousness of all that is. At midnight of the seventh day, a golden blue orb entered the cave, a signal that it was done. The guru stopped chanting and placed the beads in a lotus dish. Tomorrow, he would prepare them for their journey to North America. For now, he would sleep. So that's the start of the mala beads. And the mala beads journey from person to person throughout the United States and British Columbia, Canada. They are a surprise, a salvation. They're the kind of thing where people don't realize they're in the middle of praying for a resolution or a miracle, and suddenly they are faced with the idea that they could manifest their own destiny. Most people don't realize that they already can manifest their own destiny. Most people do it without consciously even knowing that that's what's happening. The book itself is really about, it's very character driven. So it's stories that connect, that are about people that are just like you and I, people that that you can imagine, people that you've heard, the type of story that they have, you might have heard. And I actually have a synopsis of the characters, and I thought it would be fun if you just give me a number from 1 to 36, and I'll tell you what that character's storyline is, because it's very diverse and very, some of them are fun stories and some of them are very hard stories. So go ahead and give me a number from 1 to 4. Number 4, okay. Number 4 is Debbie. I like Debbie. Debbie's first day back to work is going badly. Her customers' well-meaning questions are tearing at the guilt scabs that have barely formed over the wounds of responsibility she holds for her mother's death. When her boss adds one more head of hair to the end of her day, Debbie reconnects with Lori, a woman she resents and mistakenly tagged with the perfect light. A teary confession, an act of kindness, the passing of the beads, and Debbie learns the truth of her friend's life and her mother's death. It's a relatively simple story, feeling guilt about the passing of a parent, or feeling guilty about the passing of somebody that you could have possibly done more to save them. And when you're in that space of holding on to that trauma and that guilt, there's really nothing, there's nothing you can self-talk yourself about. And sometimes you need a little help to actually create that ability to let go or see something clearly for what it was. Let's see, why don't you give me a number from 1 to 36?
35.
Okay, 35. Going it alone with a disabled child isn't easy, but Willow prides herself on the love and care she gives her 7-year-old daughter, Morgan. If only she could get past the nagging thought that she was somehow to blame for her life, for how her life had turned out. During one particularly bad night of depression, her friend Cheryl comes by with a book club invite and an assurance that the mala beads she's passing along could be the answer to Willow's question. Willow's story also, funny that you picked 2 that have to do with holding guilt, because so many of them have nothing to do with that. But in Willow's case, she has a child with cerebral palsy and she feels like she did something wrong during the birth, but this is definitely her fault. And when she's given these beads, she does the mantra in a way that doesn't feel like it's going to accomplish anything. And then she sleeps. And when she's in the middle of a dream state, she realizes that she can literally see the clock on the wall in the maternity room where she is delivering her child. And she realizes that her protests against having a cesarean section did not hold up anything. In her mind, hours must have passed, but in the reality, it was only minutes before the doctor finally convinced her it was time to do it. And she woke up with a new perspective of what it might take to be happy again, to actually have a handicapped child and be happy. Let's see. All right, give me one more, and then we're going to talk about other things.
13.
Lucky 13. Yesterday, actually, we filmed 2 shows on Friday the 13th for that television program, Books in the World. And when we did it, the last Friday the 13th, we lost all the filming. We had to film them all over again. So we were in a little bit of a panic. But I'll still read the one for the 13th. Okay, John is newly married and looking for a way around the land restrictions on the property he had inherited so he and his wife could build their dream home and move out of their in-laws' house. John has nothing to lose by using the mala beads and the mantra he was given while med-flagging a kidney to a patient in South Carolina. So all of these stories connect to the previous one. He goes actually to deliver a kidney for Aaron. And when he goes to deliver that kidney, the nurse rushes out and says, "There's something for you." And, you know, the patient has something for you. And he assures her, "I can't take anything back to the donor's family. Like, don't even try to give it to me. That's something you have to work out through the donation organization." And she said, no, the patient said that this is for you. Because he had been doing his own mantra, asking for a kidney, and which a kidney was a short commodity in during the pandemic for a variety of reasons. If you didn't have a crisis of health to the point that it was an absolute must, your part on the list was completely stopped because they were not doing any unnecessary surgeries, and it was dangerous to go into hospitals at that point and do surgeries. So the backdrop of this book is all during the pandemic, but it's not about the pandemic. It's about people that have, you know, one woman, Senora, who is she's from Egypt, and she has relocated to Seattle, and she has been a victim of female genital mutilation, and she does not ever envision having a full life with a husband and children. And no matter what, in her mind, she's okay with it. She's going to be fine. This is just what her life looks like. There's not a reason in the world to go any further except for enjoy her work as a yoga instructor and live a quiet life. And then she meets somebody that she can't live without. And suddenly the choices that she's made to not have reconstructive surgery become part of her agony. And she spends most of her time pushing him away until something happens that gives her a change of heart. So a lot of it is about people already having the answer within. Some of it actually is pretty mystical, so they don't have the answer and it comes to them in a vision. And some of it is that the person that gave them the beads turns out to be the more important player in their story. So they're all different stories. As Kirsten said, it was actually a finalist for the American Fiction Awards, and then it was the winner of the PODI, which is the Person of the Year Book Award for Multicultural Fiction. I tend to write all kinds of things. I tend to write things that are dark comedies. I tend to write romantic comedies. When I screenwrite, it's just like there's no holds barred. My novels have all been multicultural fiction, but definitely everything else is, I've written, let's see, I have one screenplay that is, it was actually a winner of the UK Film Festival. And it's called Blaise Madoc, and it is about a man who is living in a virtually waterless time in the world. So it's a little bit, it only takes place in 2034, which when I wrote it sounded like a lifetime ago. Now it sounds like it's something right around the corner, but the government drops off like 2 gallons of water a week, and that's their ration. And he is an old man who used to be a painter, used to be a house painter and a painter of pictures on canvases. And he is also extremely resourceful. So he quietly lives by himself, and the story walks you through what his day is like, how he conserves water, how he has, there's no reason to have a tub, so he has a compost in his tub, and he has learned how to, recycle his urine, and how to make a cup of coffee stretch out for an entire day. And I mean, it's an amazing story, and a little scary. I have lots of screenplays, and actually on my website, which is www.kathyaspden.com. You can actually see all of those, and you'll probably get a good picture of what the ADD is like in my head, because there's just nothing off the table. I don't know why, but, I have a dramatic television series that, I'm hoping someday somebody grabs it, if you know anybody. But it's called A Perfect World. And again, it's a little bit, dystopic. It's about a time, and I wrote this actually, I want to say 2016. I was taking care of my mother-in-law, who was very ill and in the last phases of her life. And so I wasn't working. And I started writing this television show. And so I wrote the pilot first, and it's about when this is, the whole theme is autoimmune disorders, so people become more and more susceptible to autoimmune disorders, and then they eventually, the government wants to do something about it, and they decide that the autoimmune disorders are all stemming from people marrying outside of their race. And so they start to try to control that. And again, it's got a cast of characters that are really funny, and it's a really dark story. So combining all the genres is something that I love to do. Let me tell you, is there anything else you'd like to know about the Malavides? Or actually, if you have a question, I'll take it.
So I am completely a neophyte on this. What are Malavides?
Oh, so what's in your hands, the Malavides?
Right, I kind of figured that out.
Okay. So I should have my own in my hands. So it's funny, because if you look at Malavides, there's about 1 million things about them. They've become popular again, but they actually predate, I think they're from the 9th century BC, and they predate rosary beads. But they are a counting bead that you would use for a prayer or a manifestation. So Japamala is really what they're called, which means prayer necklace. And they are based on sacred geometry, which is 108 is a very spiritual number. In sacred geometry, it has to do with, you'll see lots of things broken up into 108. I don't know if you know anything about spiritual geometry, which I didn't know anything about it. But it's basically, it has everything to do with nature. So if you, in its simplest forms, it's that every design has a numerical purpose that creates this. So the number of petals that are on a flower are never random. They're always in threes. The ways that leaves come, the DNA that creates anything living, not just people, but it's all done in numbers that make sense to science. And it's an old study, well before we started thinking about science as science. And so these mala beads also come from that. And just like Catholic rosary beads, which are also 108 beads, so they all kind of follow in that same, most cultures have some way of counting out prayer. I mean, I say that, which is funny because in Catholicism, it is decades, everything's done in tens. But then with all the additional beads, it ends up to be 108 beads. But I didn't know as much about it as I thought until somebody gave me these mala beads during the pandemic. It was right in the beginning, 2020, and my husband, who was at the time 73 and a retired respiratory therapist, decided he was going to go back to the hospital and work full-time, frontline with COVID patients. So, and I was proud of him and not handling it well. We had, like everyone else going through that part of things, we had a house that looked like a hazmat station. He'd come in and all of his gear would go into this ultraviolet box, and he'd get undressed in the entryway and everything would get thrown in, and I would be asking him questions about his day while he's marching up the stairs to take the shower. And on top of that, so it was very nerve-wracking. He's the guy that should have been staying home with people bringing him his groceries, and yet it was, it was a calling to his career that he could not pass up on. To be honest with you, he's 76 now, and he's still putting in a couple of shifts a week at the hospital. It's kind of a blessing is right. And at the same time,
So I used to be a respiratory therapist.
oh, you did? Oh, bless you. Bless you. At the same time, our daughter was pregnant with her second child, and she was a little bit more than 8.5 weeks. Well, what was she? Probably eight months pregnant. So I think she had like 8.5 weeks left till her due date. And she got COVID. And it was horrible because it was in the beginning. It was when they weren't sure how to treat you, whether it was going to be put you on a vent. She had, she was taking, what medications she could being pregnant. She was doing breathing treatments. And it was all like watching, she was 3 miles away and we were watching it from a distance because it was really nothing we could do about it. And her husband got it, her son got it. So they were in it. And she tested positive until the day before she delivered. And so they were saying she hadn't had any more ultrasounds. Like it was like her pregnancy care stopped the minute she became COVID positive because they didn't know, how to handle it. She actually, I think, did have like an ultrasound and some blood work, but they told her that if she still tested positive, she might not be able to bring the baby home. I mean, it was during those times. So I was not good. I was just a mess. I was not functioning. I had so much anxiety, but also I was spreading that fear and anxiety like it was my full-time job. And really not helping anyone. I wasn't a benefit to anyone. And my friend Susie gave me the mala beads and she said, let's start doing mantras together, and so we did, and they were very simple mantras, but kind of put my soul back into my body. I was kind of like, wait, this picture is way bigger than just me and my husband and my child. Like just have some faith that whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen. It's going to happen whatever way it does happen. And being in a total panic about it in every moment is not going to be the answer. So, and then the mantras kind of turned into other things. Like my first mantra was, I'm happy, I'm healthy, and I'm loved, which are 3 things that everyone aspires to. So a mantra is an intention towards something, not a state of fear that you're in, but an intention towards something. And I started thinking about how wonderful it would be if people could have the ability to visually see something that would create that sense of peace and connectedness for them. And I wrote just one little story, and that kind of grew. It grew into the book, The Mala Beads. But the way that you do mala beads is you put them over your middle finger, not your pointer finger. You put the guru bead, which is the one right here. So sometimes it's a tassel, sometimes it's a larger bead. And you put that in front of you. And then starting on the other side of that, you pull each bead toward you as you're saying an intention. And you do it so that you're pulling that intention toward you. It's drawing the reality to you. So the first one, I am happy, I am healthy, and I'm loved. And then you just pull it and go on to the next one. And so, and it is such a soothing thing, but also if you're able to create that space within yourself where you, and I'm not saying you can't think about things, because part of the love of meditation for me was realizing that it's okay. A thought comes, you know, you can be doing a meditation with or without mala beads, and all of a sudden you think, oh gosh, I have to do the laundry. Why didn't I push that over to by the time I'm done with this meditation, that could be half dry, you know? You literally, and so instead of fighting that off, you just accept it. Oh, I could have been doing the laundry. And you let it come and you let it go. And then you try to focus on your breathing. And then when it comes back again, well, you let it come and you let it go, and then you go back to your breathing. So the whole trick is just going back to your breathing, because your breath is your life and it's your awareness. And when you take that moment to pause, which I think is really difficult these days, because everyone is frantically, they take a moment to pause, and that pause isn't a pause, it's scrolling TikTok. It's looking up whatever ads Kathy Aspden has on Facebook. And it becomes something where you're not aware of the fact that you've given your whole psyche, you have given it one moment of peace for an entire day. And I think all of us get that. And I needed something tangible. I needed to hold something in my hands and know that for 108 times, I would have the opportunity to slow things down and stop the panic that was happening, you know, in my mind. And before I knew it, it was amazing. I mean, let me tell you, it took a while of grabbing this, you know, having that moment where but then suddenly, it wasn't like the horror of the situations went away, because that wasn't what happened. It was that the acceptance that there was nothing that I could do about it except pray for the best outcome, hope for the best outcome, and not live in that place of fear. Fear will kill you. And actually, let me say that again, fear will kill you. And I think it is one of the things that stops us from doing. You gotta let go, exactly. And I'm a person that didn't know how to let go. Yeah, thank you for being a respiratory therapist too. I love that. I love that. What made you stop? Was it family?
Yes, and yes and no, because at the time, I think there was something to do with blood and
Well,
HIV, I think.
Oh, yeah,
the
yeah,
AIDS
yeah.
epidemic.
Well, I mean, that did happen too with this, like people were,
Right.
that's kind of one of the reasons why my husband went back, was because it was just, you know, people were leaving very quickly, and there was a need for it, you know?
Oh, yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, oh no,
We both had it. It hit me much worse than her. For her, it was cold. I lost 13 pounds in 8
Wow.
days.
wow,
Yeah, that was before any vaccinations. were
right,
there.
and before you really knew what to do with it, other than just get through it, I mean, yeah, I know. My husband did end up getting it, he ended up having to have the monoclonal antibodies and all of that, and I kind of thought maybe he wouldn't go back after that. And he kept saying, yeah, feeling pretty good, I'm ready to go back. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. The only thing that affected the fever was to shut the heat down in the room.
Yes,
I could not get the fever under control with any medication.
no, it was wild, and everybody responded to it so differently depending on what you were already dealing with as a person. Like, Even pretty healthy people were falling apart with it though. Yeah, it was really crazy.
It was actually, in some ways, it was affecting healthy people even worse. But,
You know what, is that true? Because that's what I heard as well.
well, that's what
people that-
happened in the Spanish flu epidemic in
Oh.
1918. It would cause your body to overreact and have it kill you. So
Well, so it's,
children and old people in 1918 were doing pretty well.
we're doing pretty well,
The people in the
exactly.
prime of their health that were dying.
Yeah, well, that,
Here, I think it's just depending on how it hits you.
right, and depending on which variant you got and all of that. One of the things, one of the stories in this book is about a woman, who. Her name is, Barbara, and she's older, and she's so mad, she's so mad that here we are. I'm gonna end my life the way my mother started hers, because her mother was a toddler during the Spanish flu. And so she said, I'm gonna end my life just like my mother started hers. And she was mostly angry about her independence. She had a daughter who was trying to get her to move in. She had messed up her Stop and Shop login like one time too many, and she was afraid to like call her daughter and say, I've messed it up again, because her daughter was so pressuring her to get rid of her little tiny house and come move in. And a neighbor who, you know, was kind of dropping off food gave her the mala beads, and she did that mantra as though she, like, no emotion, as though she wrote it down, and it was like, Om Sat Yam Narayanam Om Sat Yam. She's like, I'll just do it, but it's not gonna change anything. And, 10 minutes later, the phone rings, and it's her granddaughter who is saying, Nanny, I just lost my job. And she said, well, I don't have any money for you. No, Nanny, that's not what it is. Can I move in with you for a while? Like, I really need a place to stay. She's like, of course you can. And it was like, help had arrived. It wasn't the way, you know, she had no concept that it was ever gonna happen. But her piece is really fun for me because she was angry. You know, she was just like taking the whole thing personally. All I want to do is go to Target and walk around job lot. Like, it's not like my needs are so huge, you know? And so some of the people, their needs are not that big, and others have really big, you know, this one couple trying to save their ranch from a wildfire in California. And they end up being gifted these beads by somebody they don't even know, by somebody who's used them, and all she knows is in the end of the instructions, it says pass the beads along, and she's so terrified that if she doesn't pass the beads along, that the mantra won't work.
So this basically is following one set of beads where they go and
It's
who has
one
them.
set of beads, yeah, where it goes all the way, you know, it starts out on Cape Cod. It starts out with a woman named Claire, who's at the beach, sleeping in her car. She had said, you know, I'm going for a walk on the beach, but it was March. That really means I'm gonna take a car nap in the sunshine. And so suddenly she is, you know, she's in that part of sleep where you're almost there. And she hears a rap on the window, and she looks up, and somebody's telling her, you know, roll down the window, and she realizes that he's made that roll down the window gesture holding a handgun. And like, she's in that part of sleep where she's like, is this normal, not normal? And then she snaps to fully awake and realizes it's clearly not normal, and she's being robbed. And when she's being robbed, she actually takes a different, you know, I think she's had a really rough time, so we don't know her story yet. We don't know that her husband had COVID and that he's finally on the other side of it, and that this robbery is just, oh God, and now this is happening. That's how she is about it. She's not, there's not any part of her that's in a panic about it. She's mostly like, well, and now this is happening. And her whole focus in the robbery is, I don't want to give up my purse. Like, it has a lot of good stuff in it that I need. Can't I just like rifle through it and give you the money? And so they're negotiating how this is going to happen. And during that negotiation, it becomes clear to her that he's just a scared young man. He's certainly not a professional robber. And the gun kind of looks like an antique gun from like the Wild West. So she ends up dumping her pocketbook on the passenger seat and going through it and getting out all the money. I mean, even to the point where she takes like the little tuckies that she has, you know how everyone has like little hidden slots in their wallet that they might keep $100 bill in. Well, she's like, hold on, don't take it. I've got some more in here. So she's at that point in this story. And that's when she realizes that she's got the mala beads right there. And she's kind of like, oh my gosh, the mala beads. And she, elicits a promise from him that he can have all the money as long as he takes these beads and promises to follow their instructions exactly the way that they're written.
Instructions.
And those are the instructions, the little scrolled instruction, which from this camera, I don't think you can see. I keep taking all your stuff.
That's quite all right. I'm the type of person I play with pieces of paper about, so you be.
Oh, good, this will be for you. So the instructions, I'll actually give you a new bag if you want, but these are my energy in them. They're gonna be really good when I give them back. The instructions are, this japa mala holds ancient and powerful Sanskrit energy used to manifest miracles. To manifest your miracle, you must follow these instructions precisely while keeping an open heart. Sit in a meditative posture with your eyes closed. Breathe in deeply, exhale slowly. Do this 7 times while envisioning your intention. Say your intention aloud, then begin the mantra. You will chant Om Satyam Narayanam 108 times using the mala beads to count, 1 bead for each intention. When you have completed this mantra, your miracle will come. Be patient. Once your intention has been realized, you will pass the sacred energy to the next person in need. Namaste. So the vehicle for the story is the mala beads. The real story is what we know about, what we don't know about ourselves, and what we don't know what we're capable of. So yeah, thank you so much.